5 a.m. somewhere, so that means the garbage collectors are coming to take out the trash, but we won't throw you out.
Welcome to your Trash Pals podcast, coming to you live from the backstage of RuPaul's Drag Race. I'm your host, RuPaul Charles, and this is my best friend, Michelle Visage, and we're here to goop and gag you on this, our podcast about drag and looks and working hunty.
Working hunty.
And whatever. I'm not in fact RuPaul Charles. I'm in fact Van Notes.
And I'm Wren, not Michelle Visage. Michelle Visage. Words are not my friend today.
This is gonna be a very extra special. We have a very extra special guest judge, Carson Kressley / Ross Matthews, coming on the pod today. Welcome to the pod, Ross Kressley.
I was admittedly a little offended that you called me Carson. I'm okay with Ross a little more, but I don't know. For some reason it was offensive, but I do kind of like Carson, but this is going to be a topic in therapy this week for sure.
A topic in therapy. Oh, no. So funny.
So you got me, RuPaul Charles, aka Van. You got Michelle Visage, aka Wren, and then we also have our official Housewives correspondent for the podcast, Arik Hardin, back on, coming to endure our nonsense once again. We already have an HR complaint because I sent an unsolicited pic of an unidentifiable part of someone's leg to Arik before we started recording. So
funny.
Yeah, I just didn't feel like the workplace was conducive to a safe environment. And I also was like weirdly turned on. It was just a lot of emotion before the recording started. So I'm in a place, but I think I'll power through.
Hell yeah.
For context,
we're a bunch of power
it was someone's dating profile that I screenshotted, I guess without their consent, cancel me, but there's no identifiable information for this individual because they've made it that way. They've just posted a random section of their leg onto the dating apps. It's one of the most unhorny things I've ever seen on a dating app. I was not titillated.
So. Yeah, but it got you talking. Look at here you are.
Yeah,
it got me talking.
Yeah,
that's so funny.
Shout out to you, unidentifiable leg. Besides leg pics, what are y'all consuming this week? My saga started with like watching every season of Drag Race that I like missed because I stopped watching around like season 6 or 7 or something like that. And then I watched the newest season. And so I watched like 7 through 13 in like the span of a week. And then I flew home to my parents, and maybe 2 weeks. I flew home to my parents, and now my brother is visiting as well. And I've been making him watch with me every season of All Stars because I had never watched All Stars. So that's my trash. You're going too fast.
I'm being really intense about it. I watch about a season a day.
Too fast. This is the story of Icarus. And
honestly, I'm Icarusing so hard.
Your brother is dataless, watching you ascend farther and farther towards the sun until your glue gets all melty.
My glue. It's funny because when he was like young, I used to make him watch Drag Race with me. Like back in like 2012, I made him watch Drag Race with me and Bad Girls Club. I love Bad Girls.
Here you are.
And here I am today. A totally normal, sane adult.
Happy Pride.
Very normal, aggressively normal. I love it.
Let's see. Arik, what are you consuming this week? It is Pride Month. We should say Happy Pride, or as Idaho calls it, Straight Awesomeness Month.
Is that a real thing?
Is corny.
There is a local bar that also legitimately hosts seminars on how the earth is flat. And as a promotion,
they decided they needed to also celebrate not Straight Pride Month, Straight Awesomeness Month. And once again, Idaho ended up in the national news for something completely embarrassing and not at all delightful. Idaho is the reason that TV exists, and yet
That's
still
funny.
we are clowns and fools. All of our contributions are wiped out by Dorcases. The guy isn't really even an Idahoan. He's a Californian that transplanted. So, but yeah, happy Straight Awesomeness Month. Feels so bad to say it.
My favorite month of the year. I look forward to it every year.
So funny.
This week I have been watching. I'm embarrassed to say it, but I have been doing a rewatch of Sex and the City for the 100th time.
Ooh.
It's just, every few years I feel the pull and I can't say no. And then I'm once again mad at Carrie Bradshaw for being the person she is. She's just not good in any way. Big should have dumped her 7,000 times over. I mean, he's also trash, but like the way this woman is acting for this man that, I mean, he's cute, but like, is it the money? Like, what are we talking about? He's not that great. He's obnoxious. He's horrible. Yeah, she's cheating on people. She's punching people in the face. She's stalking people. She's just doing way too much, and she has to be stopped. Samantha Jones continues to be the best character, although she is in fact a gay man's version of a woman. She does not exist in life, but I still love her as a gay man. And yeah, it's just terrible, wonderful television. So what can I say?
I love. Do you, at this point in your rewatchings, do you just skip the double whammy of the bisexual racist episodes? Or do you watch them?
I always watch the bisexual episode just because it's so painful. And I have a very dear bisexual friend, and one of our running jokes between us, because we are queer people, is that bisexuality does not exist, even though obviously it does. And so every time I watch the episode, I do send her memes of that episode. So it is a part of our friendship. So I have to watch it every time. Yeah.
What is this bisexual racist episode? I only got so far in Sex and the City until Carrie like dumped this very perfect guy to get back with Big, and then I was like, I can't do it. It's too much.
There's a double whammy of episodes. The first one is the bisexual one, and then the one directly after is the super racist one. I think, was it? Now I'm trying to remember the context of the racism, but I think it's something about like black dick or something like that. Really unfortunate.
Yeah,
it's the low hangingest fruit.
Samantha's dating a black man and she loves his penis, and it's not good. But I mean, the whole show is so deeply problematic. Like there's almost nothing in it that stands the test of time. It's bad all around. Which is not, not proud to say I'm watching it, but here I am.
Honestly, that's the way it is with some things.
I was nothing stands the test of time except, I guess, South Park, which continues to be. I couldn't say it. I was trying to say it with a straight face. So I have no desire today to be an evil bro who's just like, South Park's great because it punches at everybody.
You're so funny.
Can't do it today. I don't have the energy for it.
I'm glad. I would have to punch you through the computer.
I think, what was Laura? So, beloved friend of the podcast, Laura Konetzker, I'm going to call her out on this very show, this very episode, because we text back and forth about a really good manga called Tokyo These Days, which is by Taiyo Matsumoto, creator of Ping, which I never think of Ping Pong first, but that is his most popular thing. I'm always like, the Tech on Creek guy. He's that guy. But he's doing a manga right now called Tokyo These Days, and it's all about like these mangaka, and it's essentially like a heist story, but it's like a manga editor who's like getting all these cartoonists together to do like one last big magnum opus like manga collection. But I've gotten really into like trying to figure out who each of the mangaka is. And Laura posited that I would have a YouTube thumbnail that just said the Matsumoto Iceberg Explained, and I would become a like awful comics review like YouTuber referring to like underground comics as flawed masterpieces and saying that R. Crumb isn't that problematic.
I would love
Anyway,
that for
Laura,
you.
No, I don't want it for me. I can't defend R. Crumb. I can't do it. I couldn't do it even when I was young. So, young and naive about the world.
So funny.
But that's not my trash. My trash this week is in Tokyo These Days. Tokyo These Days is super good. We'll just do a whole drag race segment here, I guess, in a little bit. Because Wren gave me a Paramount Plus login, and I've just been back in the mines. But I haven't been going that fast. I've done a season in a week instead of a day.
I don't know what to tell you.
Because apparently I'm weak. That's what I'm getting from this. But I've been reading a lot of 90s comics in preparation for working on a zine story with Wren. In a yet to be publicly disclosed. This is a live exclusive that we are working on a zine. When it will come out, that's still to be announced. What is it? Still to be announced. But we're working on a little zine, but I've been reading so much 90s comics. I've read so much Youngblood.
Oh boy.
Rob Liefeld's creation Youngblood.
You love Rob Liefeld.
I do love Rob Liefeld. Let me see. I have a really good piece of dialogue I wanted to read live on the air.
I'm sorry to our listeners that Van is such a nerd.
Let me pull my comic book out of its plastic sleeve.
Oh my goodness.
To think that these are now going for like actual money because of all the rights being taken away from Rob Liefeld because he sold them in the 90s. The fact that I had to pay actual money for these comics instead of 25 cents is really abhorrent to me. But let me read you just this selection of prose here. As a young boy growing up in Melbourne, Mick Randall had an uncanny knack for being in the wrong place at precisely the wrong time. Regardless of its size or shape or color or scent, if trouble was lurking anywhere near, Mick found it. It wasn't until he was older, almost 18 years of age, that he discovered that apart from being a magnetic for adversity, he possessed a talent unique unto himself. He could absorb aggression, and not only could he absorb it, he could release it as well in the form of concentrated bursts of energy. Suddenly, whatever trouble he happened to find himself in was no trouble at all.
That's so funny. I love the scent of trouble.
Just this is how hardcore he is.
Oh my goodness.
Whacking things.
17-year-old. Did I understand that correctly?
As a young boy, at 18, he found out.
Well, it said almost 18, which is why I'm thinking 17.
Yeah,
this is a minor.
I guess. There's also. I'll find one more panel. But these truly are wonderful comic books. Stand the test of time. It's going to be hard to write about. Some works of art, it's really hard to write about because of their level of quality. This will be one of them. I just want to show you this panel live on the air that was published in a comic that was read by young 13-year-olds just so thinking they were very straight. It's this panel of the character Troll showering.
I hate that. If
Look at that.
like,
isn't that great?
truly, I like think that I'm 50-50, like attracted to men, attracted to women. That pushed me to like 25-75.
Your Myers-Briggs just got decimated. Like,
Honestly.
or no, wait, not Myers-Briggs. That's not the gay one. What's the gay one?
Oh,
Kinsey
yeah.
scale.
Yes, my Kinsey scale. That thing, oh
Your
my god, gross.
I'm gonna send that to you just at different points. I'll make sure that you have a high-res scan of that so that you
High res. Oh my goodness.
So I guess in lieu of an actual like Jigsaw's junk drawer before we jump into Real Housewives of New York, in what are in your just like fast succession of like drag race watching, what are your big takeaways, Wren? What do you have to share with the class?
Good golly. Like, good golly, do drag queens love a good pun? There are so many puns. Even my brother picked up on it. He was like, there are so many puns. I'm like, yeah, they love it. They love a pun, love a double entendre. Um, I don't know. I also like every queen that I like a lot gets bullied a ton. And I'm like, why are they getting bullied so much? Like, what is this about? And I'm like consistently, even though I know who's gonna win, like 45% of the time, yeah, a clean 45, I'm consistently shocked. Like, even when I'm like, oh yeah, I've seen the outcome of this episode, like I remember this from my past, and then I'm like, oh my god, such and such won. Especially like when I see the all stars like lip sync assassins, and it's like incredibly clear like who's gonna win just by outfit alone. I'm like, oh my god, that's so crazy. I think I'm just easily like wowed.
Are you deconstructing your heels prejudice, or are
No,
you only being reaffirmed?
only reaffirmed. You take off your wig, you don't wear heels, you lose the lip sync immediately. I hate it. And you have to have a wig underneath. Like during, I think it was Monet Exchange's All-Star season,
Oh, yes.
she had that matching wig under her wig. That was comedy gold. It was
one
beautiful.
of the most iconic moments of all time. To reveal the same wig under the wig, that
it was so funny. I lost it. It was so funny. I remember I was watching that at like 3 a.m. because I couldn't sleep. And I was like, this is a worthy way of spending my time.
I'm trying
What
to
about
think.
you, Van? What are your takeaways?
My takeaways, I've just watched one season, which I'm trying to remember now what season I'm even on.
12?
Drag race season. I think I'm on 14. I want to say I'm on 14.
How many seasons of Drag Race are there? I thought there were
16.
14. 16. Good God.
Yeah. So I am on 14, which is Willow Pill is the winner here. Cornbread, Miss Congeniality. And then we also have the fun of Maddie Morphosis.
Yes.
Who they said was the first cisgender straight queen, which everyone was a little bit like well, like, oh, I mean, I remember it was it was the ship that launched 1,000 think piece articles or whatever, whereas most everyone was like, I don't know about that, there's probably some gender feelings wrapped up in that. Which I think has proved to be right in the long term.
Really?
We also, I think Maddie Morphosis has come out as saying like that she has like was cross-dressing before that and has like certain feelings of like gender variance or whatever.
Oh, cool.
Which, like, you know, is what it is. I think we're now, I think, progressing to a point where the idea of a drag queen having a girlfriend is not the wildest, craziest thing in 2024.
Yeah.
Also, everyone that season, that was also the season where everyone was trans or like came out as trans after that season, which is wonderful. I'm glad because I remember as a youth RuPaul saying that trans drag queens had an unfair advantage or something like that. Is that the soundbite? So
yeah, he basically said that it was like an athlete taking steroids before the Olympics or something. Which is just like totally cool and normal to say. Yeah. RuPaul. You love him and you hate
I
him.
don't like RuPaul. Like when it comes down to it. I'm like
I don't either, to be honest.
no. With the fracking, with the trains flag. I think about that all the time.
The trains flag, yes.
The trans flag. It's so funny.
RuPaul is like in the list of celebrities to get like Ellen next. I think RuPaul might be like at the tippy top of that list. Like,
I mean, he's come close to getting Ellen a couple times, so
yeah,
it's he's on the very edge of the cliff, and I feel like it's coming for sure.
I'm wondering like who will replace RuPaul.
I would personally love if it was Bob or Bianca. Although Bianca's past is not.
Oh,
is
really?
Also I mean, she just like her comedy. She's very racist.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So
sick.
I don't know if it would be a good choice long term. I think Bob personally would be, or maybe Alaska. But I think Bob would be the best choice personally.
Yeah,
Bob
I
is
love
such
Bob.
a great host. So funny. Yeah.
Maybe RuPaul's situation is different than the Ellen situation because it's been a steady like pressure release where RuPaul screws up just enough that the pressure is on but also off at the same time. Whereas Ellen was secretly, or like there wasn't enough pressure release along the way. So when she did get in the big trouble, it came hard for her. So.
Yeah, I think everybody knows that RuPaul is like not the greatest person, but like Drag Race is, dare I say, Criterion Collection television. Dare I say it? Yeah, so RuPaul's not allowed to die because the show has to go on for the rest of my life.
I mean, they'll keep it going long after if it keeps making them money. So it's always
the engine is running.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad that they're on MTV now so they can curse.
Oh yeah. I've noticed that quite a bit as I've been going, where I'm like, oh yeah, they couldn't say many words before they'd bleep it, and you'd be like, oh, that wasn't that bad of a swear.
Yeah.
But let's see. I am a little I understand why Willow Pill won the season that I just watched. It makes much sense. I was a bit sad. Now I'm struggling to remember who she even was against. I was a little sad Lady Camden came in second. But
I was definitely sad.
I think it is a situation where the producers were like, we can definitely get Lady Camden back for All Stars. But this is, I guess, Willow's moment. So, which is a wild thing that we're all producing in our heads as if we run the show. But
yeah, plus Willow in that suit with like her tiny head and the big suit. That's so funny. That's so funny.
And then the head at the crotch.
Yes. I thought that was hilarious. If you go to Willow Pill's Drag Race wiki page, they have a picture of her in the suit and her head looks microscopic. It's so funny. I can't get over it. I think about that picture every single day because I'm on that wiki. I'm looking things up, looking up alternative outfits. I'm like, what is going on? What are they doing?
So before we launch into RHONY, who is your like top of mind, first thought, favorite Ru queen?
For me, I think it's probably Katya. I love her. She's so ridiculous. I love comedy queens, like 100%. So Bob is up there, Alaska's up there, Trixie's up there, but Katya is probably my favorite.
I think for me, well, right now I'm watching All Stars 6, I think. So I'm like Jansport because I think Jansport is very cute. I have a crush on Jansport. I won't lie, but I really like Ms. Cracker. I'm a Ms. Cracker stan.
Wow.
Unless she's done something racist that I don't know about, then I'm gonna be mad.
No, I don't think so. No, not that I've heard of. She had the drama in that season where everyone hated her for a while, but I think that was mostly just silliness.
They were like,
but as far as I know, she's still cool.
Yeah. I like Aquaria, the queen that she had drama with. I was like, this is dumb. I don't care about this. Have some real fight. Steal a boyfriend. Let's do something real. But there was nothing like that.
That whole season of drama with Aquaria was just like, who cares that you look similar? You're white. Like, get over
it. It was a nothing burger.
How about you, Van? Who's your favorite?
Oh, Eric, you already said. I love Sasha Velour, cartoonist representation. Did you know Sasha went to Center for Cartoon Studies?
No, I didn't know she was a cartoonist. Oh
There's if you get the Velour magazine book, which is the like anthology collection, you can see some of her like comics in there.
Okay, things to look out for. Drag Race merch that I'm interested in. The Jansport collaboration fanny pack, and also the Sasha Velour magazine. Those are the two things I'm interested in.
There's the magazine, and then she had a book come out, so I need to read her book too.
Sick.
She did a nice like hardcover of all the like magazines collected together. That I have that already.
Okay,
it's gorgeous. So, all right, I will get out of the pilot's seat, the pilot's chair. I know nothing about Real Housewives of New York, so you two just take the wheel, I guess. And if I can't handle it, I'll just start looking at unidentifiable legs.
Oh my goodness.
So y'all just go on ahead.
So before you start, Eric, I need to preface, I don't know a ton about RHONY. I know like a little smidgen, maybe this much. Oh, this is like a circle, but like, okay.
Wait, can anyone do that?
Yeah, well, I think it works better if it's a heart shape.
I think it's because I'm on a Mac.
Well, I'm also on a Mac.
Too.
Oh, just kidding. It's because I'm special.
For the audio listeners, we're all just holding up our hands like clowns trying to make hearts happen on the screen, which I've done before. I've had hearts.
True. Why is it not working?
Oh no.
This hurts.
This is
I know it's supposed to work for thumbs up too. Or like confetti. Anyway, it's only working for me because I am the most specialist out of the three of us.
Do I need like a more solid? Huh.
Does it work with the Zoomer heart? That's how they do hearts now. How the kids are making hearts.
Wait, what?
Yeah, this is how the kids make hearts now.
I don't understand. Is it a spicy meatball? I don't.
It's like your pointer and your thumb. Wait, how do I do it? Like that. And then that's the new heart.
This is so deeply millennial of us.
This is just like okay.
I mean, our last episode was Skibbity Toilet, so we're pretty hip with the kids. We know what's going on.
Amazing. Anyway, so I guess I'll take it over. This is my show now. So Real Housewives of New York is definitely my favorite franchise. It was the first one that I really dove into. Picture me I forget the age I was, but beginning of the pandemic. And I was like, what am I going to do with all of these hours of my life where I'm just stuck at home? And so I started watching Real Housewives of New York. My roommate, who I love dearly, is the biggest Bravo fan that's ever been. She's obsessed. And she, for years, because we had been living together about 2 years, like a year and a half before the pandemic. Or no, what am I thinking? For like 6 months. I'm exaggerating. For like 6 to 8 months, we had been living together. And she had been telling me the entire time that I should watch Housewives. And I was like, I will not be doing that. I value my personal time and my life. And I don't want to get sucked into this. And then finally, after months of her referencing things that I did not understand, I was like, okay, fine, I'll watch this. But my plan was to watch it in secret so that then I could start throwing in references in conversation just to like see if she would notice. But I got 3 episodes in and I was like, I can't hold it in. I have to talk to her about the craziness of this show. So it didn't work out. But I ended up watching the entire series, except for the last like season and a half before the reboot, because it just got boring to me. I lost interest. The problem mostly was that I'm no longer, because she has gone down a dark path, but I used to be a big Bethany Frankel stan. She is my favorite of the New York Housewives, at least based on her run on the show. I cannot support her today. She has lost touch in an embarrassing way. Thankfully, she's not been like, at least not that I'm aware of, like obnoxiously problematic, but it's just like sad to see how out of touch she is. Anyway, so what I wanted to do
What's she
is do
done?
Yeah, I'm so curious.
Her whole thing on when she was on the show was like being the one to call out the ridiculousness of the women around her. Like she was the voice of reason. And then over the years of fame and exorbitant wealth, she's just lost complete touch with reality. And so she is the very person she used to ridicule. And so it's just like deeply sad to witness. Like there was an entire TikTok drama that might still be ongoing because a Chanel store didn't recognize her and let her in. And so she made like 30 TikToks about it. It was a whole thing. And it's like, girl, look within. Like, what are we doing? So she's done, but she is iconic. Anyway, so I think what I want to do, if it sounds okay to both of you, is just give you like a lore dump of like at least the main cast and then maybe some stories here and there. And then we can maybe run through some like iconic trips, iconic quotes, iconic fights.
I love it.
Okay. So I'm going to start with first season cast. I pulled up the Wikipedia so I would have everyone's names. So there's Bethany Frankel, who we've already mentioned. At the very beginning of the show, she's relatively well known because she was previously on, I believe it was The Apprentice. And so she got some notoriety there. And then she went on the show at the recommendation of one of her castmates. She was the only cast member who was unmarried. I think the second in the show's or the franchise's history, because I think there was one unmarried woman on OC. New York is the second franchise that came out. OC was the first, and then Atlanta shortly thereafter, I believe, but not an expert. But she, in the beginning of the first season, she's a hardworking business owner. She has a health baking company, like organic baked goods and stuff. And she's a chef, and she really wants to find love. She really wants to find business success. And so most of the seasons that ensue are related to that. I'll give an introduction and then I'll really dive into the lore of each individual person, because especially I think Luann's story is probably my favorite to share, because the woman has lived 7,000 different lives and she's just unhinged. But I'll get there. So that was Bethany. Then we have Luann. Oh, well, I guess in order of the list, Luann de Lesseps. So at the beginning of RHONY, Luann is married to the Count Alex de Lesseps. He is the descendant of the Count family. I don't know what things are called, but they helped build the Panama
Count
Canal.
Family.
The Counters? I don't know.
The Counters!
Wait,
Count
Wait,
Dracula.
so is he an actual like European royalty count, or
Yeah.
is his last name just Count?
No, he is a count.
Oh, okay.
That's
Yeah.
so
Okay.
funny.
Yeah, no, he is a count, and a big part of her personality for most of the show is that she is at the time and then was a countess. So they call her Countess Luann. It's a thing. Anyway, so she. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I thought that was just a gay thing. That the reason she was called the Countess Luann was just like
That's so funny.
okay.
Nope, she was
Okay.
married
Hi,
into
fam.
it. Yeah.
Not everything is
All
a gay
right, learning.
thing.
She is a big. She is beloved by the gays, but no, she was in fact a countess for a long time. So she was married to the count. She had 2 children. She was primarily didn't have like a full-time position. Her full-time position was being a mom. She did like a lot of charity stuff at the time, and so that's kind of her at the beginning. Then we have Alex McCord, who was a working mother. She was married to Simon Van Kampen, and they are one of the oddest couples to ever appear on any Housewives franchise. Many people thought that her husband was gay because he loved to buy her clothing, and he was very odd and had very intense fashion himself. And they lived in Brooklyn, which was hugely controversial at the beginning of the show because all the rest of the ladies lived in the Upper East Side, and they would never go below a certain street in Manhattan. So the fact that these 2 lived in Brooklyn was hugely controversial. And they had 2 beautiful children, Francois and the other one whose name I forget, and they were just menaces. Yeah, so that's kind of and they're social climbers. That's their whole early season plot line, is that they just really want to fit in with New York society. So that's the Van Kampens. Then we have the one and only Ramona Singer, who we talked about, I think, a little bit last time. She is one of the worst women that's ever appeared on a Housewives franchise, I think. I mean, there's some that are much worse and like actually committed crimes. So like she's certainly not in the top, but she's up there. And at the beginning of the show, she was married to her ex-husband, Mario Singer. They had, at the time, she had a business where she would buy wholesale clothing and then sell it to like department stores. And her husband had a religious jewelry company. And so they lived in the city, very wealthy, had a daughter. Yeah, that's kind of the intro to Ramona.
What is a
There's more
religious jewelry company?
They sold a lot of like crosses, and it was called True Faith Jewelry. I don't know if it still exists, but they sold like a lot of like Christian jewelry.
Oh, okay. I thought it was like across the board religions.
No, it was like specifically Christian. Yeah.
We have Stars of David. We have like all sorts of just cross pan religious
little teas
artifacts.
I think it was just Christian. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, and then the last of the main cast, Jill Zarin, who is one of my favorites, and one of the things that I like to judge a housewife by is whether or not I would actually want to be friends with them in real life. And the vast majority of them, I have no interest. They're absolutely unhinged people, and I don't need that energy in my life. But I do think I want to be friends with Jill Zarin because she is like the quintessential, like stereotypical Jewish, like auntie character. Like she's very like involved, always like always knows the right person for the thing you need, very like in your business, meddling, but like in a loving way. At the time of the show's inception, she is married to Bobby Zarin, who's a fabric and textile magnate in the city. She has a daughter named Allie, who very early in the season she sends to a fat camp, but she later claimed was not a fat camp, was a wellness center, but it was a fat camp, which was really cool and great for her. And her whole vibe is that she runs with a fabulous crowd of people. She's a name dropper. She loves to talk about how wonderful her life is. And so that is the core cast of RHONY. They're all iconic women. I want to give you the full Luann story. So I'm going to skip through many seasons when I tell you the whole story. So basically what happens is Luann, I think she was born in Connecticut. She has a normal upbringing. She's not royalty in any way. I mean, I think she's like relatively like affluent. Like I don't think she grew up poor, but she grew up in Connecticut, and then eventually in her, like, I believe early 20s, she moved to Europe to do modeling. She briefly was a television host for some European show. While she was over there doing all of her modeling, she met Alex de Lesseps. They fell in love and got married. They ended up having 2 children. And then at some point, she got into this really insane car accident where she like drove off of a cliff or something. Wild situation. She ended up surviving, obviously. And then they moved back to the States, where she gets the Real Housewives. She becomes very famous from the Real Housewives. Very soon after, her husband is caught cheating on her, and so they get a divorce. Turns out that they had been having an open relationship for many years that they did not disclose on the show. Because Luann, as you will come to know, is an insatiably horny woman, and loves to have sex. As she should, no judgment, to be clear. But she loves men. So they get a divorce. Soon after, Luann starts dating a French Jewish man named Jacques. And I only mention that he's Jewish because at a certain reunion, I forget which season, she mentions that her ex-husband would hate that he was a Jew. And Andy Cohen, a Jewish man, is like, does your ex-husband hate Jews? And she does not answer. So seems like yes, which is also great. So she's dating Jacques for a while. They end up going on a trip. The entire cast goes on a trip to, oh God, I wrote it down, didn't I? St. Bart's. They go to a trip to St. Bart's. Luann still dating Jacques.
Is that a common East Coast vacation destination?
St. Bart's is like a it's like a, where is it? It's like an island in the Caribbean,
Yeah,
maybe?
like I think it's a Caribbean island.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. No, it's not like in the U.S.
So funny.
But they go to
Y'all go
St.
to the
Bart's.
Caribbean more than we do over here.
I've never been to the Caribbean. This is
Neither have I.
out of my price range.
My only
I'm
knowledge
just
is
saying.
the Housewives. That's the only reason I know anything. So they go to St. Bart's, and while they're there, Luann begins a flirtation with this man who they lovingly refer to as the pirate because he looks like a pirate. And they end up, it's debatable what happens, but everyone on the cast believes that they had sex. She denies it, I think, to this day, but most likely they had sex. And then while they're still on the trip, Luann is lying about it. She's on the phone talking to Jacques, saying, like, telling him a lie about what happened. Meanwhile, this is all being filmed. It's a whole thing. They end up staying together through that season, but then they end up breaking up like a season later. And Luann's mostly fine about it. They ended amicably. Then Luann, in her infinite wisdom, starts dating a man named Tom. Now, for context, Tom D'Agostino is his name. He previously dated Ramona Singer, one of her castmates. They went on 6 or 7 dates, I believe. And even before that, he was friends with benefits with Sonia Morgan, who's another castmate who I haven't introduced to you guys. So he has slept with, well, we don't know if he slept with Ramona. She says he didn't, but she also loves men, so most likely they did sleep together. So he's most likely slept with 2 of her castmates at the time of them starting to date, which is, not a great, not
very
a great
messy
situation. But so she starts dating Tom, and it's a very quick whirlwind romance. She's obsessed with him instantly. They say they're the male and female versions of each other because they're both players. They both love going out. They both love having sex. It's perfect for each other, right? Except everyone in her friend group is like, don't date this man. He is bad. And she just will not listen to them. They get engaged. They go to, sorry, where did they go? Oh, I didn't write it down. They go somewhere, I think it maybe is Miami. They go somewhere on a trip. And Bethany, right before the trip, gets a text message from a friend of hers with photographic evidence that Tom, while engaged to Luann, was at the Regency, which is a popular hotel in New York, making out with a random woman for hours on end. And so Bethany has the uncomfortable... Sorry, what were you saying?
They were in the hotel lobby just making out?
In the hotel bar.
Okay.
Yeah. Making out for hours on end. And so funny. Bethany has to decide whether or not she's going to tell Luann this inflammatory information. She ends up deciding to. And so in one of my favorite moments of all time on the show, Bethany, or I think I think Luann just comes into her room. I don't know if Bethany beckons to her, but Luann goes into Bethany's room and Bethany says, I have to tell you something. And at this point, Luann has been through the ringer with all of her friends because they all don't think she should date Tom. And so her immediate response after Bethany saying, I need to talk to you about something is, please don't let it be about Tom. And Bethany immediately responds, it's about Tom. And so Bethany shows the pictures and the text messages that she received. And obviously Luann is distraught because the man that she thought she loved is cheating on her. And so she runs off and sends him a voice-to-text text message that says, how could you do this to me, ? Is what she verbally says, which is iconic. So yeah, it turns out he was cheating on her. She decides that she still wants to go through with the wedding, I think mostly because she's stubborn and she doesn't want to admit that she was wrong. So they end up getting married. It's a whole thing. Sonia freaks out because she still has feelings for Tom, but her very close friend Luann is now marrying him, and that's a whole thing. Everyone in the group keeps hearing news about Tom cheating, but Luann won't hear it. It's a whole thing. So then they get married, and then very soon after, I think it's like, they definitely didn't last a year. I think it was maybe like 8 months. They get a divorce. Really fun. Then Luann goes off the deep end and but she realizes she's an alcoholic and she gets arrested while she's in Palm Springs. Or not Palm Springs. Oh no, I'm forgetting the place, but it's in Florida. She's somewhere in Florida. Palm Beach, that's what it is. There's a different Palm. Palm Beach. She's in Palm Beach. She is drunk with a man. She ends up going into the wrong hotel room by accident because she's drunk. And then she gets kicked out, but she ends up getting arrested. And then she threatens to kill the police officer who arrested her. And then I think hits one of them. So then she gets arrested. She goes to jail. There's a really beautiful mugshot of her. Keep in mind, this woman was a countess. So just, this is the same person. Anyway, she gets arrested.
Was the police altercation, that wasn't caught on camera, right? That was
caught on the police desk,
body
or
cam?
Not the body cam, but the cam in the car, and it was released to the press, so you can watch that. It is very clear that she says, "I will kill you." To the
I can't wait to watch
officer.
this.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. So then she gets arrested. She has to go through this whole parole thing. She can't drink anymore, which is a whole thing. She has many relapses. But while she's dealing with this alcoholism problem, she also discovers one of the biggest loves of her life, cabaret.
Truly, I was about to be like, who's cabaret?
No, I missed two important. During her Countess days, toward the beginning of the show, she writes this book called Class with the Countess, talking about how people should act in a classy way. So it's kind of like a Miss Manners guidebook for how to have class, which, given what I just told you about her arrest, is really hilarious. But then also, she starts a music career. I think this is season 2 or 3 of the show. She starts a music career. Her first song is Money Can't Buy You Class. Iconic song. Money can't buy you class. Anyway, terrible song, but it's great. She has a whole music career. Then, during her quest for sobriety, she starts a cabaret show, and it becomes her entire personality for many years. She still does it.
It does become one's personality, from what I've seen. When people start doing cabaret.
Is it what is cabaret? Is it the strip show thing?
I think it can include that, but it's lounge singing, boozy vocal singing at a lounge situation.
Yeah.
Performance. I don't know.
Adjacent to burlesque.
Yeah, but you don't
burlesque
have
is
to
the
get
thing
naked.
I was thinking of.
Yeah. So she's doing that. She's loving it. Then she ends up going off the deep end again because of her drinking. She loses her mind to the point that she's trying to buy a $6 million home, even though she does not have $6 million. And so she's calling all of her friends, trying to get them to loan her $6 million so she can buy this house. Her children end up suing her because of some money issues with her family trust. It's a whole thing. Bethany and their friend Barbara swoop in to get her into rehab and to get her lawyers and get all this stuff figured out. She leaves the rehab after 2 weeks so that she can do cabaret again because it's her whole personality at this point.
No.
And then there's a really iconic altercation between Luann and Bethany that you will not understand the context of, but basically Bethany's then fiance, who died of a drug overdose, previously had helped Luann with her legal troubles, and Luann, in her narcissism, never checked in on Bethany after her fiance passed away, and so they're out to dinner one evening on a cast trip, and Bethany is not in a good place emotionally because of the death of her fiance, and Luann's talking about her cabaret, and Bethany goes off on her, Luann can't understand why, and it's just really sad but also hilarious. So that happens, and then Luann gets her drinking pretty much under control, from what I know. Although she every now and then there's like word that she's gotten drunk again, so who knows. But yeah, that's kind of the whole Luann story. She's had a long and interesting life. Any thoughts, questions?
How old is she?
She's I think she's probably in her late 50s, maybe early 60s, but I think definitely late 50s.
That's so crazy. I'm like, that's pretty young for like an old person. I'm 21, so I don't know. I wouldn't understand. But that's so crazy. That whole saga is so crazy. I love it.
Yeah. That is Luann de Lesseps. Oh, I should have mentioned also that she did lose her countess title when she married Tom D'Agostino. So she technically is no longer a countess, but to her, she will always be a countess in her heart. So
that's very
that does
funny.
track.
Yeah.
She's gonna be at the Pantages in Tacoma.
You have to go. If you go. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, these tickets are much more affordable than I would have expected.
That tracks for me. That makes sense.
I thought these would be a little pricier, but you could get an opera box for $165, and you could get a second row seat for $150.
Wow.
Most of the seats here, it looks like, are in the $50 range. So
yeah.
Is she still on the show?
No. So New York had a recast for season 14, I believe, is the number of the season. So basically what happened was Bethany left the show, which we can get into. I want to tell you the whole Bethany story. It's also, it's not as convoluted as the Luann story. Nothing compares. But I do want to tell you more about Bethany because I love her. But she ended up leaving the show. And then a couple seasons went by. It just kind of went downhill. I think partially because Bethany left, but I'm a Bethany stan. So other people would disagree. But it just started going downhill. The fights got really repetitive. Ramona got increasingly racist. Just a bad vibe. And so they ended up canceling the show for a while. There were talks of doing a legacy cast where they would have the original Housewives do a different show, and then they would recast Housewives or New York proper with a whole new cast. They ended up scrapping the legacy, so there's no original castmates. And they did a recast with an all-new cast of women that I actually quite enjoyed, but it's just not the same. But it was good. But no, so Luann is no longer on the show. None of the original cast is on the show. Yeah. So that's Luann. I do want to talk about Bethany, unless there are any other questions about Luann.
No, I just think making cabaret your whole personality is a very good career move. I think it's
working for her so far, as much as I can tell.
People who get into nightlife, they make it their personality at a certain point.
That's so funny.
Okay, so Bethany,
like
I said, was at the beginning of the show, very little money, very she was the poorest of all the women. She was really struggling, hustling, trying to get her business to work. And then I think it was either season 1 or season 2, she's out for drinks with Luann, and they're talking about something or other, just gabbing, gossiping, etc. And the waiter comes over and says, "What would you like to drink?" And Bethany says, "I'd like the Skinny Girls margarita," which to her, she tells him the recipe. It's a thing she's invented with her friend group. And so then from that, she creates Skinny Girl vodka, which I'm sure you probably have seen.
I'm a skinny girl popcorn stan.
Well, that was Bethany. So she created that entire empire and made an ungodly amount of money. So much money. Just skyrocketed with this brand. It was alcohol, it was snacks, it was clothing, it was everything. So she became uber wealthy like almost overnight. She a big part of her storyline in early seasons was, can a woman have it all? Can she have the career and the husband and the children? So after her business starts really taking off, she meets this man named Jason Hoppy. They fall madly in love with each other. They get married. They get pregnant. Everything seems great. And then suddenly they're getting a divorce. Turns out Jason was abusive and terrible and not a good person. And so they start the divorce proceedings, and the divorce ends up lasting, I believe, 8 or 9 years. I can't remember exactly, but
Holy
it's
moly.
An unbelievably long divorce. And she doesn't talk about it on the show because of the legal proceedings, but we have since learned post-show that he was abusing her. He was like taunting her, tormenting her, sending her like hundreds of emails like on a regular basis, like taunting her and telling her she was a terrible mother and she was a bad person and all of these things. Constantly petitioning to take her child away from her, all of these things. Horrible situation. So that's bad, but that is an ongoing thing. For years that was happening. She ends up leaving the show for a while because she got her own spin-offs. So she had a show about her wedding with Jason. Then she had like 2 or 3 spin-off shows with Bravo. They ended up not working. So she came back to Housewives of New York, Real Housewives. She's on for several more seasons. During that time, she meets this guy named Dennis, and they start dating. It's a bit of an on-again, off-again situation. Finally, they fall in love. He proposes. She says yes, and then he dies of a drug overdose, as aforementioned. Really sad time for her. I'm trying to think of things I'm missing. I prepared much more for the Luann story because I knew I had to tell you all the details, but I'm forgetting. Oh, well, some history for her. She was abused as a child. She had a really tumultuous like family life. Her mom was like addicted to, I believe, several substances and was not a good authority figure. Her dad was out of her life for the most part, and then her stepdad was abusive to both her stepmom and her. Not great. And then she went on to try to become an actress. She, for a brief time, was the babysitter for Paris and Nikki Hilton in Los Angeles, so that she knows that family and the Kardashians as well through all of that. Then she also briefly did I don't know if you would classify it as softcore porn or what it would be called, but she did like a slightly pornographic film at some point in her career. Yeah, so that's mostly her backstory. Then all of the fame happened, blah, blah, blah. Her big fights, for the most part, on the seasons are about her business. There's one wonderful season where Sonia Morgan, who I have not introduced to you, decides to create a brand of alcohol called Tipsy Girl, which she does not think is in any way related to Skinny Girl. And then Bethany, of course, thinks this is not okay and calls her out on it, and it's a whole thing. But it's hilarious. There's an entire fight with Ramona because Ramona Singer prides herself on being a businesswoman, and she's insecure because Bethany's a much better businesswoman than she is. And so they're in the Berkshires at Dorinda Medley's house, and they get into this huge fight, and Ramona claims that Bethany only is famous because she slept her way to the top. But Bethany, in a confessional, really funnily says, I haven't even slept my way to the middle. I can't even sleep my way to the bottom. Someone please fuck me to the bottom, is I believe what she says.
So funny.
Hilarious. And then at another point in that same argument, Ramona brings up the porn video thing that she did. And she said, if you want to mention it, let's mention it. And Bethany says, let's mention it all. And then leans back and opens her legs toward Ramona. It's hilarious. You have to look up the clip. It's iconic. Anyway, I'm not doing a great job of explaining Bethany, but she's one of my favorites of all time. She's definitely the funniest, there are funnier women I almost said queens because of Drag Race. They're all funnier women on the show than Bethany based on how delusional they are. But Bethany is the funniest, like, oh, I'm telling a joke, like I'm intentionally being funny, which I love about her. And she's also, for most of this show, like the voice of reason. So like you see a lot of the show through her because she's like, this is all nuts. These people are insane. Isn't it funny that they're crazy? And one of her most iconic, one of the most iconic fights of all of Real Housewives of New York happens on Scary Island, which is, where is Scary Island? Oh, I didn't write down the actual island. I think it's St. Thomas, I think. I don't know. Anyway, they call it Scary Island because of the iconic fight that happened between Bethany and Kelly Bensimon. Kelly Bensimon came onto the show in season 2, and from the jump did not like Bethany for unknown reasons. Bethany had no issue with her, but Kelly just did not like Bethany. There's an iconic scene in season 2 where they go out to dinner together to squash their beef. And at some point, Kelly says, I'm up here and you're down here. So, which is really cool. So anyway, they go on this trip. They've had like many arguments. They do not like each other. They go on this trip, and I'm not a doctor, nor is anyone that's ever, well, not ever been on the show, but no one that's been like was on the show at the time is a doctor, so they can't speak to her mental state. But it seems like she has a mental breakdown while she's on this island. Some of the highlights are that she claims Bethany is not a chef, even though she is quite literally a chef who went to culinary school. She talks about gummy bears and rainbows and runs into a glass door and all of these things. It's just, she's not doing well. And so then they're out to dinner, or they're at dinner at their villa that they're staying at, and Bethany has made them a delicious meal, and they're all sitting around, and Kelly starts talking about how she's convinced that Bethany has been planting stories about her in the press to defame her, even though, as far as we know, that's never happened. She's also convinced that Bethany's trying to kill her, which, as far as we know, is not the case either. She also separately said that one of her fellow housewives was channeling the devil and looked like an angel about the same time. So, like, how does that make sense?
Oh,
she's just she's not doing well mentally.
Oh, no.
And so there's a really iconic fight between her and Bethany where Bethany screams, go to sleep, that I regularly scream to my roommate. Anytime she says she's sleepy, I'm like, go to sleep. Anyway, so then Kelly ends up having to be removed from the island and is sent back to New York by production because she is so unwell that they cannot have her on the island any longer. Meanwhile, Jill Zarin, who I previously mentioned, her and Bethany are having a huge knockout drag-out fight because Jill is jealous of Bethany's business success and can't handle that her friend is becoming more popular than her, and so she kind of cuts Bethany out, and then Bethany's like, what the hell just happened? We're friends. So it's a whole thing back and forth. The next day, after Kelly is kicked off the island, Jill shows up unexpectedly to surprise everyone on the island, and it does not go well. Everyone is uncomfortable, and so Jill immediately leaves. It's a whole thing. So it is called Scary Island, and it's one of the most iconic RHONY like trips of all time. If you ever hear about RHONY, you will hear about Scary Island. It's iconic. It's amazing. But yeah, so that's Bethany. That's kind of the gist. There's other fights. There was a whole Carol Radziwill, who was a princess. So there's other royalty that's been on the show. She was married to, is it Andrew or Anthony? I think it was Anthony Radziwill. Somehow he's a prince, and he was also related to the Kennedys by blood, I believe, or maybe by marriage. Can't remember. But she was previously a princess. I don't know if she keeps the title after he dies, because he died of cancer when early into their marriage. But so she was a princess. Anyway, her and Bethany are friends, and then they have a huge falling out. It's a whole thing. I'm ultimately Team Bethany in the fight because I think Carol was just being dramatic, but I also don't know anything, so who am I? But anyway, so that's Bethany. I feel like I'm talking way too much.
No, this is...
Is any of this interesting?
Yes, I'm sorry to keep yawning. I had a flight yesterday at 8 a.m., so of course I got up at 3:30 a.m. and didn't sleep until midnight. So I'm so tired, but I'm on the edge of my seat. This is so interesting.
This is so much for me to understand in my small, feeble mind.
It's a lot. I'm really throwing it all at you, but I just have to. I just can't not say all the things. You know. I'm just so excited.
I
wanna
still
watch
haven't
it.
gotten over how Bethany has a whole line of jams.
Mhm.
I was looking at the website and they all had cocktail themed names. All of these
Mhm.
jams.
Yeah.
I
And
come from a
dressings.
proud.
Jams and dressings.
Ooh.
Yeah, it's a whole thing. I also want to talk about Ramona Singer. I have to.
Yes.
I hope that's all right. I have to.
I'm so happy. I'm
So-
so
You have
excited.
to. Legally binding.
I must talk about her. So, beginning of the show, like I said, she's married to Mario, her husband, who owns the jewelry company. She has her own company. She, growing up, was also abused. Her father was abusive to her mother and her siblings and herself. Her mother's entire like parenting philosophy to her was like, when you get married in the future, make sure you have your own income because you should never allow a man to control you financially. And so that is Ramona's mantra from day one of the first season. Her whole thing is, I love to make my own money. At a certain point, she says that money is an aphrodisiac to her. She loves making her own money. She loves being self-sufficient. She has many business ventures over the years, including Pinot Grigio. She has this True Renewal skincare line. I'm trying to think of the other ones. There are many. Anyway, for a long time, her and Mario had the quote-unquote perfect marriage. They were deeply in love. They ended up renewing their vows on their 17th, I think it was their 17th wedding anniversary, which, like, why not just wait 3 years for the 20th? But okay.
It's a rando one.
And then I think a year or two later, it comes out in the press that Mario is allegedly having an affair with a much younger woman. And so, rather iconically, at that season's reunion, Andy Cohen is asking her about her marriage, and she is avoiding every question. She will not answer. And so finally, he asks her one more question about like her marriage or whatever, and she lashes back and says, well, why don't you tell me about your sex life, Andy? Like, who are you going to have sex with tonight? And he goes, I'll tell you that when I sign up for a reality show about my relationship, which was, I thought, rather iconic. So they end up getting a divorce.
Was Anderson Cooper out at that time?
I don't think they're together. I don't think they
Yeah,
ever
they're
really
not
dated.
together.
Wait, are Andy Cohen and Anderson Cooper not together?
No, they're
Well,
just friends.
Yeah,
As
Andy
far as
Cohen's
I know,
married.
Andy Cohen,
Wait,
as
what?
far as I know, is into like twinks of color, is what I've heard. And Anderson Cooper is
Wait.
like also what I conjecture. I don't know if this is true, but he's like a huge power bottom from what I've heard. So I don't know that they're compatible.
I thought they were together all this
No.
time.
They're just pals.
Wait, what? This is blowing my mind.
I'm glad I could teach you.
I had this entire narrative about how they were together, and
No.
like, then who's okay? Keep going. I gotta figure out where this wire got crossed, but I'm listening.
Okay. So that's a huge moment. I kind of want to talk about some of the iconic moments with Ramona. So Ramona's big thing is that she says things and then regrets them, but she can never stop herself from saying things. So there are many nicknames for her. They call it the Ramona coaster, where she insults you and then apologizes to you and loves you, and then she insults you and then loves you, and it's just a roller coaster called the Ramona coaster. They call it the singer stinger because she's always just singing people. They call her the apologizer because she's constantly apologizing for all the bad things she does. She has many nicknames. One of the worst fights she ever got in, which is also one of my favorite quotes of all time from Housewives, is I think they're in the Berkshires again, which is also lovingly called the Berkshires because there are always fights that go on there. They're in the Berkshires, though. I think so. Anyway, they're somewhere, and they're on the lake. And Ramona had just gotten her hair done, and so she doesn't want her hair to get wet because she got it done so she could go out to meet men, I think, later that evening. So they're on the boat, and Kristen Takeman, who's a new housewife, I believe that season, splashes the boat with water and gets Ramona's hair wet, which pisses Ramona off. So then Ramona throws her drink at Kristen and then throws her glass at Kristen's face and cuts her lip, which is not good, obviously. And then I believe she also tries to throw an oar at her. Can't remember. That's not good. Then they go back to the house and they're in a fight in front of the house, and they're like yelling at each other. And obviously Kristen's mad because she broke her skin with a glass that she threw at her. That's nuts. And it's at a certain point in the argument, Ramona starts screaming, "Who are you to get me wet? Who are you to get me wet?" Which is iconic. But I'm sure I'm not the first person to think of this, but I've always wanted there to be a situation where I'm like talking to a man that I'm attracted to and just like send them that gif. That is my dream. It's never happened, but I want it so desperately. But most of them wouldn't get the reference, I feel. I'd have to find someone that gets Housewives. But it's that's just a personal thing. Yeah, that's a personal thing. I just really would love to send that and have it be received well. So that's an iconic fight. I'm trying to think of others. God. Yeah. She's just not a good person. Later seasons, it's a big part of point of contention that every time they go on a cast trip, she demands to have the best room. She requires a good view, and she refuses to be in a bad room. So she's constantly fighting everyone for the rooms. She also doesn't treat people that she views as below her very well. There are many times where she's talked about how bad areas of various countries are and how dangerous places are and how unsafe she feels and how she doesn't trust anyone to touch her luggage and et cetera, et cetera. It's a whole thing. She's bad. I assume we're running out of time. I just never stop talking. But I do want to tell you about Sonia Morgan really quickly, who is
Please do.
One of my favorite housewives. So she is one of the greatest people that has ever been on any housewives show, objectively. Greatest in terms of, I think she is the best intentioned person, but also the most unbelievably delusional person that's ever been on any of the shows, in my opinion.
She's not a humanitarian.
No. Best as in, I think she has the purest heart, but she is delusional.
Yeah.
No, sorry. To be clear, none of these people are good, like objectively good people. None of them. But she is, I think, of the worst, one of the best. Anyway, so backstory for her. I think she grew up relatively like middle to lower class. She lived in New York, was doing like PR stuff, and then she met, I forget her husband's first name, but he's one of the Morgans, one of the Morgan family, like JP Morgan, very wealthy family. She ends up marrying into the family and coming into a lot of wealth through that. And then her husband ends up having an affair. They get divorced. She gets a lot of money in the settlement. She also has her own businesses and stuff. She does a lot of real estate stuff. She briefly had a stint where she was trying to become a Hollywood producer, and then she got sued for millions of dollars. It was a whole thing. Anyway, her whole deal at the beginning of her seasons is that she is a bit of a recluse. She lives in this dilapidated is the word, dilapidated townhouse that she loves but is falling apart. And she employs hundreds of interns that she does not pay, but they get school credit so that they can be her personal assistants. It's a whole thing.
Yeah, that's good.
It's not, look, she's bad, but she's great. I love her. But her whole deal is that she is hilarious. She's she's one of the funniest. Like I said, Bethany was like a comedian funny. Sonia is like, sometimes she's in on the joke, but most of the time she's not in on the joke, and she's hilarious. So she's very open with her sexuality. She loves talking about sex. She talks about it constantly. So the gay men in the world love that, of course. She's also just really funny and great. I'm trying to think of quotes. Let me see. I wrote down some quotes, but none of them are Sonia quotes. Oh no, I'm failing the gays right now.
Oh no!
Straight is Great Month, or whatever you said it was.
Honestly,
Straight is great.
What was
better?
Like
awesome
so
is Straight Awesome.
Straight Awesomeness? Was that what it is?
Yeah. Which is funny because I told my coworkers happy Straight Awesomeness Month, and they both got very uncomfortable. And then my one coworker was just like, all right, as we were like leaving, he was like, all right, happy month. I was like,
happy month.
Happy month to you too.
Oh my god, hilarious.
But I thought Anderson Cooper and Andy Cohen were married for years and years now. So
That's so funny.
They are in fact not.
I just did the mom thing where I was like, oh, they're both gay. They must be together.
That's so funny.
Anyway, you failed the gays. I did too. How did you
Eric,
fail the gays
I have a quick
today,
question.
Ren?
Yes, Wren. Question.
How did I fail the gays today? By going to the gym and in a non-sexy way. In a very anyway. So
let me just deconstruct this. So you walked into the gym and you weren't in a matching tracksuit, and so there were no gays just snapping as you walked in and being like, "You better work."
No, I wore my Garfield shirt that says, "When I when I die, I may not go to heaven because I don't know if cowboys are let in." So that's the shirt I wore.
It sounded like you were making up the shirt as you were reading it.
I was reading it.
Okay,
I'm a bad upside down reader. Okay, so I googled Sonia RHONY just because I was like, what does she look like? And one of the things that comes up in related searches is Pickles, and I'm like, what is that?
Pickles is one of her most famous interns. She is a young woman who, I don't know why, but goes by the name Pickles. And she is one of Sonia's interns. And that's mostly what you need to know about Pickles. She's just a figure in several seasons in early Sonia time. Everyone loves Pickles. Pickles is revered within the fandom. But we don't really know much about her, I don't think. So.
That's so funny.
Yeah.
I Googled her. And I'm like, her name is Naomi and she's black. And I'm like, somehow this is racist. I don't know how, but this calling of Pickles, it feels weird.
Yeah, I don't know where the name originated. I have to assume it's not from a good place, but I don't know for sure. But yeah. So Sonia, one of the things about Sonia, I also want to say briefly some stuff about Dorinda Medley because I feel like I have to say something about Dorinda Medley before we end this, because if I don't, I will have failed. But Sonia Morgan, one of her big things is that she takes her responsibility to the Morgan family very seriously. And so they're on a trip to the Berkshires because everything happens at the Berkshires. And while they're there, they visit one of the Morgan houses because a lot of the Morgan houses have become historic sites. And I think it was Dorinda who was touching some of the letters that they had preserved at the house, and Sonia was not happy about that. And so later when they were at dinner at Dorinda's home, she was talking about the day and how stressed out she was at being in one of the Morgan houses, and she starts screaming at the top of her lungs, "You don't touch the letters, you don't touch the fucking Morgan letters." And then later that night she picks up a dog in a really weird way. She was very drunk. She's amazing. I'm trying to think. I've really failed in so many ways on the Sonia front because there are so many iconic quotes. She loves to talk about her vagina, so there's many quotes about that. She loves having sex, so there's many quotes about that. She's just iconic. You have to look up some best Sonia Morgan moments. You will laugh your ass off. It's hilarious. But I also, I know we're cut me off at any point, but I do have to talk about Dorinda Medley very quickly.
Okay.
So, Dorinda Medley.
You've been marathoning.
I can't help it. And I haven't even touched, there's so many more. I didn't even talk about Aviva Drescher with her leg. That's one of the most iconic moments of all time. But I don't have time.
Leg?
I don't have time, Wren.
You can't just say leg and leave me hanging.
I'll tell you after.
Okay.
So Dorinda she was previously married to a man named Richard who was big. He was a political scientist. He was very close friends with Hillary Clinton, and he was big in Democratic circles. They lived in London for a long time. He ended up dying of cancer, I believe. He passed away. She became a widow. Then right before, or a couple of years before she got on the show, she was dating this man named John Medessian, who was a very big dry cleaner in the city. They date for a long time. Contentious relationship because no one likes him because he's like kind of sleazy and like gross and like not good enough for her in the eyes of her friends. Blah, 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 blah. She is iconic. She has 2 martinis and she loses her mind and cannot speak English. She slurs all of her words, but she's iconic and she's like really cutting and funny. But in my opinion, she has gone off the deep end. I don't think she should ever be on a show again because there's an evil that lives right below the surface for Dorinda. Even when she's sober, like she can slip into the evil very quickly and be really horrible to people. But give her a drink and the evil comes out and she's just vicious. I can't think of any quotes at the moment because I'm just failing. But you definitely look up Dorinda Medley quotes. They are amazing. She's slurring most of her words in them because that's what she does. And it's iconic. So anyway, Aviva with the leg. So
please, I'm begging you.
So Aviva
So
Drescher
much leg
came on
talk today.
Honestly,
there's a lot of leg talk. Aviva Drescher came onto the show, and I think season 5, maybe. Anyway, in her youth, she was her leg got accidentally cut off because she got trapped in a piece of farming equipment that like sliced her leg off. So she was obviously, like, I don't know the correct terminology, but she no longer had a leg for the rest of her life. So she had a prosthetic for her entire like run on the show, and it becomes a big plot point in the first season. She also has a lot of like neuroses and like anxieties, so she doesn't like travel and she doesn't do certain things because of her fears, which is a big plot point in her first season. Second season rolls around, and suddenly she also has asthma, which apparently is a real thing that she has, but everyone on the cast doesn't believe her because they're convinced that she's using all of these ailments to get out of cast trips for whatever reason. So they basically say she's a liar and she doesn't actually have asthma. She, in fact, does have asthma, LOL. She had previously lied about a bunch of other stuff, so like it's not as crazy as it sounds that they called her a liar, but it is still crazy that they called her a liar. So at the very end of the season, the second season she's on, which I believe is season 6, they're all at dinner, and Aviva has brought x-rays to prove that she has asthma to this dinner so that she can show them that she's not lying about having asthma. And then they get into an argument about her having asthma, and she says, the only thing that's fake about me is this, and she pulls off her prosthetic leg and slams it onto the table to prove that this is the only thing that's fake about her. Everyone freaks out because they're not expecting a prosthetic leg to be slammed onto the table, so they all like jump up and are like shocked. And then she throws the leg into the middle of the room and says, "You can take this, I'll crawl home." Hilarious. And that's the leg.
That, and you weren't gonna tell that story. You were just like,
realized that I couldn't because we're so far past the normal amount of time. I have to assume you don't do 7-hour episodes, and I could talk for that long.
If only. We'll have to have you back again. Truly, I'm like,
You are
okay.
Oh.
You're our correspondent for Real Housewives. Yeah.
We need. I really
there's so many things I didn't talk about.
Of like or a panel. I want deep political insights, specifically related, like how Ben Bernanke just like pops up around elections, like that's his one job.
So funny.
Just to yell at a whiteboard.
I'm like,
that would
yes.
be hilarious.
Oh my goodness.
Well,
anyway, I've talked way too much.
Thank you for talking so much. We appreciate it so much.
Thank you.
And thank you to all of our listeners for listening so much. You can follow the podcast on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. If we get enough follows, we'll give Arik a whiteboard to Ben Bernanke on in front of us. We'll fly Arik out to both of our locations. Give him a whiteboard with Housewives faces on it. But that's only if you keep following us. Also, you should just join us whenever we're here on Mondays, and also when episodes go up on your favorite podcast listening platform. We try to go for Fridays, but
we truly do.
But we are just poor unfortunate souls, and this week that did not happen.
We're fallible humans.
Because we have medical issues. But yeah, do that.
Oh,
Follow us, like us.
Yeah, please do. Please do. It's so funny. My mom today was like, "Oh, I want to listen to your podcast." And I'm like, "Oh, at least I didn't say cunt in this one." But I just said it. Anyway, you can follow me.
Screwed up.
I know.
Maybe she won't listen that long.
I know. I'm praying. I'm like, "Please, mom, just
I will bore her so to tears with how much I talked that she will stop listening before that, I'm sure.
No. I will tell her the episode was canceled. It just didn't happen. Anyway, you can follow me at ren.psd and Van Notes at Instagram at Van Notes Books. You can also support us on our Ko-fi, which is ko-fi.com/yourtrashpals.
You know what you should do? You should tell your mom to listen to the Real Housewives of New Jersey episode, which is the episode I was advertising all day up towards this recording. And I realized we weren't talking about New Jersey, we were talking about New York.
They're right next to each other.
I was just too obsessed with Michelle Visage after watching so much Drag Race, and she is one of her 3 personality traits is that she's from Jersey.
So funny. The other one's boobs, and then third thing
is and then it becomes not having boobs, and then it's seduction. Yeah, being part of seduction. But if you'd like to write into the podcast, you can do that at yourtrashpals@gmail.com. You can also DM us on the apps, ask us questions, all kinds of things. We can answer it on the podcast for you. You can write in to complain about our social media intern, who is in fact me.
Pickles.
But it's fine. I want an intern named Horseradish. Or or sauerkraut.
So funny.
I think it's your turn to do a fake ad, Ren.
Yes. Eric, please give us a number between
1 and 50.
Yeah, 1 and 50.
27.
Ooh.
Ren, you can do an ad read for eating lasagna before sex.
Oh my god, wait, perfect for your shirt.
For our listeners, I'm wearing a Garfield cowboy shirt, which I already described, so I don't know why I'm describing it again. Before I even get into this, fun fact, I don't like lasagna. I think it's too much. I think it's too much Italian food. It's decadence. It's decadence, and I don't care for it. So take that as you will. I'm yelling and I'm in my parents' house. So now I'm going to whisper. Having lasagna before having sex.
Are they going to be so mad that you're dissing Italian food? Is that why you're concerned?
No, because I'm like, I'm saying the word sex. And it's forbidden. The forbidden word. Anyway, lasagna. I'm just going to do lasagna. While I personally think it's decadence, you could be like Garfield and love it. It's got, layers. It's got depth. It's got tomatoes, which is both a fruit and a vegetable. So it's got diversity. It's DEI in action. Wait, yeah, DEI. I'm like DIE. It's got complexity. You've got lots of flavors going on. You have ricotta, you've got cheese, you've got pasta, and the aforementioned tomatoes. So please have some lasagna today.
But where's the sex? I need to know how the sex fits in.
So funny. It's perfectly mediocre. You're kind of too full, so it's not great.
Do you know what this is a reference to?
Not even slightly.
This is a reference to the Ojoy sex toy comic where they have to have sex before the lasagna kicks in.
That's so funny. Are they talking about are they sleepy after or something? I'm so confused with lasagna.
So the comic is, I think Drew Green, it was the cartoonist who did it. But it was iconic to my friend group because it was this like heartfelt, emotional conversation about like parents being over and like having a bunch of lasagna, and then at the very end it's like, we gotta get it on before the lasagna like kicks in. We got 30 minutes to have
so funny.
sex before the lasagna hits. Like
That's
it
very
was
funny.
just like the speed run to bottoming.
Run. Glitchless or glitchful.
So yeah, if you love
Lasagna and long walks in
the
the rain.
diversity, equity, and inclusion that comes with eating lasagna, tune in to the next episode of Your Trash Pals. And remember to reduce, reuse, and
and
recycle.
recycle.
Yay!
Yay.